The last days have been very active in Russia. While the allegations against the president of the Russian Federation Vladimir Putin occupied the agenda, suddenly all the attention turned into the death of the Wagner Chief Prigozhin. The death of Wagner Chief Prigozhin caused hot hours in Moscow. While there are many claims about the Prigozhin's death, the strongest claims is that Prigozhin was destroyed by the Kremlin. The fact that Vladimir Putin's statements in which he used the words "I can never forgive betrayal" came to the agenda again in the media strengthened the allegations. The fact that Putin was laughing in front of the cameras when Prigozhin's jet was shot down by the Russian air defense systems seems to be details that completes this suspicion. It was known that the first Wagner rebellion against Vladimir Putin put the Kremlin in a difficult situation. For this reason, efforts were made to pursue these rebels. Vladimir Putin's authority was shaken with this rebellion. Putin, who had been ruling Russia with great power for years, was very angry about this incident that shook his authority. Trying to establish the balance of power, Putin gradually liquidated the Wagner Group and tried to find new forces to replace them. Wagner Chief Prigozhin continued to be used. But now it was time for Putin's revenge. The suspicious disappearance of Putin's opposite is not uncommon in Russia. But Prigozhin's disappearance had to be public and everyone had to get the message. That is why Prigozhin and his team were executed in front of the whole world. This execution was Vladimir Putin's biggest message to Russia. Many people wondered what would happen to Wagner Group after Prigozhin's execution. The Wagner Group announced that they swore revenge for the murder of their leader. Now if you're ready, let's examine the Wagner Group's vows of revenge and its details together. After the news of the death of Wagner Chief Prigozhin, which was met with great surprise by everyone who followed the war, Wagner supporters took action. After Yevgeny Prigozhin lost his life in the plane shutdown in the Tver region, the Wagner Group swore revenge. According to Russian sources, members of the Wagner Group are reportedly planning to take revenge on Russian President Vladimir Putin and Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. Sources linked to the Wagner Group vowed to seize the Kremlin. Prigozhin's jet traveling from Moscow to St. Petersburg was involved in the suspicious crash. It turned out to have happened exactly 2 months after Prigozhin's rebellion. Prigozhin's revolt 2 months ago was the most serious challenge to Putin, who has been in power since 1999. War bells started ringing when Russian Emergencies Ministry announced that all 10 people on board the plane had died. After the announcement, Wagner supporters accused Putin for killing Prigozhin and vowed the second uprising against the Kremlin. As soon as Prigozhin's death was confirmed, messages were published openly, threatening Moscow. Videos posted on the internet shows numerous people making statements threatening the Kremlin and Putin. While many claims were made about what the Wagner Group would do, one video was watched by thousands of people in a short time. In the video, masked and camouflaged soldiers called on the people of Russia, "We are starting, be ready for us." It became clear that the Wagner Group had a well-established mechanisms of actions in case of Yevgeny Prigozhin's death. It was announced that in the events of Prigozhin's death, regardless of who was responsible, a full mobilization mechanisms would be set up and an emergency action plan would be implemented. Experts' comments on the Prigozhin's death drew considerable attention. Edward Lucas, a senior advisor at the Center of European Policy Analysis, said Prigozhin's death represents the final twist in the low-intensity Russian civil war that has been raging for months. In stable political systems, an opponent's plane would not be shot down by any anti-aircraft missiles, he said, adding the violence is now central to the Russian political systems. Lucas said that there would be a Wagner rebellion like the one in June, but the consequences would be much greater. It is thought that the Wagner Group will not accept the dissolution and will not accept that it has been done. For this reason, given that there are many armed groups in Russia, it can be perceived as a signal of an impending civil unrest. Everyone in Vladimir Putin's inner circle is worried and paranoid about who will be the next target. These disturbances in Russia would inevitably have an impact on the soldiers at the front. The most important consequences of Prigozhin's assassination would be for the soldiers at the front. Russian journalist Roman Sapunkov stated that those who ordered the assassination had no understanding of the mood and moral in the army. The consequences described by Sapunkov has begun to emerge. It became clear that some Wagner soldiers in Belarus had decided to travel to Africa. This is expected to lead a thaw in the Russia's troops. Anton Grishchenko, advisor to the Ukrainian Interior Minister, wrote in a message that the Wagner PMC mercenaries will take revenge on the Putin and Shoigu for the death of their leader. On the Ukrainian side, the unrest in Russia is being carefully monitored. It is stated that the Ukrainian troops are on the full alert. It is reported that the Ukrainian troops are closely following the developments while continuing to prepare for counterattack operations. The Wagner Group's March for Justice to Moscow has mobilized Kremlin officials. As we have told you in previous content, public order crises are frequent in Russia. The number of police officers resigning from the Russian police force is increasing day by day. As such, it will be even more difficult to maintain order in a possible Wagner rebellion. The Kremlin is aware of the potential problems and is trying to take quick measures. For this reason, it is trying to obfuscate the target in order to dispel the suspensions about Prigozhin's assassination. According to the investigation following the plane crash, Prigozhin's personal pilot was the first suspect in the plane crash. However, these statements of the Russian authorities was met with great reaction. In the Wagner headquarters building, the lightning of the lights in the shape of a cross was perceived as a sign. In the image published on social media, the fact that the lights in the Wagner headquarters stayed on until the morning in the shape of the cross was interpreted as a Prigozhin's mourning. It is thought that the actions to be taken in the coming days were planned by the authorities in the Wagner building during the night. Commentaries on the current situation in Russia indicates that Russian President Vladimir Putin is very anxious to suppress all the opposition's movements and people who oppose him. The recent spate of the violence, suspicious disappearance, and the chaotic situation spreading across the country has unsettled many Russian citizens. A second mobilization order, expected to be announced soon, it is seen as a major threat to the tens of thousands of Russian citizens. Thousands of young Russians who do not want to be part of the dangerous occupation in line with the wishes of Vladimir Putin and his outreach. They are looking for ways to flee the country. It is stated that the latest developments have caused a serious loss of motivation in the Russian troops actively fighting on the front. We will see how Vladimir Putin's dangerous power games will change the course of the war. Do you think Prigozhin's death was an incident or assassination? How do you think the new process awaiting Russia will take shape after Prigozhin's death? To what extent do you think the Wagner Group's march to Moscow, gain, and the rhetoric of taking over the Kremlin, the promises of revenge against Putin, can be realized? What do you think would be the consequences of a possible civil unrest in Russia? Who do you think could be the Vladimir Putin's next target? We care about your opinion. Please share it with us.